Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. So our topic of discussion today is stakeholders identification. So the first thing that we want to start off with is understand that who are stakeholders by definition. See, a lot of times we have this mindset that sponsor, customer, team, PMO, these are the stakeholders, as in they are the only stakeholders. See, they are, yes, of course, a stakeholders, but the definition of stakeholders is much wider than that. So, by definition, we can say that stakeholder includes anyone who is impacted by the project or anyone who can impact the project. So by this definition, we are looking at a big list of stakeholders. So yes, right from customers, sponsors, PMO, project team, project manager, then functional managers, internal other departments, external stakeholders like vendors, regulatory authorities, compliance bodies, they all are your stakeholders. So the list is usually going to be a long one. Now, yes, we understand that not every stakeholder is going to be equally important. For that, we will see how we can prioritize and how we can strategize depending upon certain factors. But before that, see, it's very, very important that we identify the stakeholders as early as possible in the project life cycle. Why? Stakeholders are ultimately the beneficiaries, or they will be impacted or they can impact the project. And not identifying a stakeholder is the most dangerous thing you can do for your project. When you don't identify a stakeholder, you have effectively missed out on their expectations, on their needs, on their wants. And believe me, when you miss out a stakeholder, they will never come and identify themselves in the early stages. Instead, once your project is into execution and you have done some substantial work, that's when these stakeholders who were missed will come up and point out certain observations. They will give you certain feedback, which is genuine feedback, and then you will have to go back and rework or redo a lot of things in your project, which of course is not recommended or is not something which helps us. So in that respect, I am saying that spend as much time as possible in identifying the stakeholders and documenting their names and their other details as early as possible in the project. Now for this, what do we recommend is that every project should have a stakeholder register. Now this could be a simple Excel file with columns like serial number, the name of the stakeholder, the department, internal, external, power level, interest level, what is their engagement level, what is their attitude towards the project. So there could be a lot of things that we can capture on a stakeholder register. Serial number, name, internal, external, their power level, their interest level, their influence level, their engagement level, and of course their contact numbers, their email address, their location, etc., etc. So there could be a lot of things here on a stakeholder register. So maybe, for example, I'll put my name here, Tushar, department, PMO, internal stakeholder. Now, let's talk about power. See, power comes from the designation or the authority that a stakeholder has. This is a positional power we are talking about. So, we can decide to have a simple high, low, or high, medium, low classification as you want, and we can have an internal guideline that anyone who's a manager, for example, just an example, will be high on power. Anyone who's below manager level is low on power. Next is interest. See, interest is commonly mistaken in terms of being good interest or positive interest. That's not really the case. Interest simply means how much someone is impacted by the project. So, say for example, I am a stakeholder who's going to be negatively impacted by this project. Even if I am negatively impacted, my interest should be shown as high. That's a very common mistake that people do. Why? Think of it in this way, that if someone is negatively impacted by the project, they will of course be interested to understand what they can do to stop the project from moving forward, what hurdles they can create for the project. So they are interested. It's just that their interest is not aligned in the positive direction, but doesn't mean that they are not interested or they are less interested. Less interest would be like someone who's less impacted by the project and more of in, I mean, they might have a mindset that okay, if they do it, fine. If they don't do it, it's still okay to me, as in I'm fine any which ways. But if someone is negatively impacted, then that is not what their thought process is. They will of course be interested to understand how the project is progressing, what they can do to reduce the chances of success. Then comes influence. Influence is again commonly mistaken with power, in the sense that high power means high influence and low power means low influence. Not necessary. Influence is your ability to convince someone. Now, influence can be with any person at any level. So there could be a possibility, say for example, the secretary of the CEO. He or she is not at a powerful position, but they can have high degree of influence. So influence is the ability to convince. Now there can be directions of influence also, right? So I can have upward influence, I can have downward influence, I can have sideward influence, I can have outward influence. Upward means that I can influence someone higher than me in the hierarchy. Like, for example, I can influence my board of directors. Then I have a high, my direction of influence is high, upward. Then I can have a downward influence where I can influence people below me in the hierarchy, downward. Sideward is in the same hierarchy, and outward is outside the organization. Then there can be engagement levels, like a person could be unaware of the project, which is like they don't know what the project is all about, or they could be resistant about the project, they could be neutral towards the project, they could be supportive towards the project, or they could be leading the project. So unaware means no idea about the project. Resistant means they don't want the project to proceed. Neutral means they are fine either which ways. Supportive, of course, supporting the project. And leading means that they are working with the project manager, with the project team, to make sure that project becomes a success. So you can indicate what engagement level a person has. And then see, we also can do one more thing here. We can create a simple 2x2 matrix which can help us to categorize these stakeholders into different quadrants. So let's say on my x-axis, I'm going to represent the interest. The right hand side is high, left hand side is low. And on my y-axis, I will show power, high, low. So now I have basically four quadrants: high power, high interest category, high power, low interest category, low power, low interest, low power, high interest. Now, of course, your high power, high interest category is the most important group of stakeholders that you want to manage closely. Then we have high power, low interest. Now, these are important stakeholders because they are powerful, however, they are less interested. So, you still have to keep them satisfied. You can't just ignore them because they are powerful people. So, you don't want to being on the wrong side, or you don't want to be in the bad books. Then bottom right is low power, which means this is the masses, because usually people on the lower hierarchies will not have high power, but they will be higher in number. So this will be a big mass of people who are highly interested. So keep them well informed so that you can generate that ground level support that you always need for any project to get successful. And then we have low power, low interest category, which you can just monitor. No active as such strategy. Just make sure that you keep monitoring them because they might jump into some other quadrant, and then you will have to adjust your strategy accordingly. So this is a very simple, easy to use tool, and also a very simple, easy to use register that we can consider using in our projects to have a more structured and formal approach towards identifying and managing these or engaging with these stakeholders as we move forward. There are more tools, more techniques associated with this topic, which we will cover in our next video. For this, let's hope that I was able to clearly explain you the various columns and why and how we can use this to properly engage with the stakeholders. That's all in this video. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.